the most important slide, in my opinion, in this particular episode, which is what is going to happen to energy prices. Viewers, Sridharji is going to walk us through a story here. He's going to start from the beginning of 2023, or probably even middle 2022, when Russia started exporting to India a lot of crude. Sridharji, you begin how far back you want, but also tell our viewers why they can expect some relief at the pump right coincidentally before the elections. Well, you can say whatever you want. Yeah, all this is going to happen before the election announcement, so expect something happening very soon. But here you will understand why that is happening. Over to you, Sridharji.
Thank you. So we set the context. Thank you, Sriji. We set the context as to the sliding energy prices was one of the big factors in terms of driving global economy. It has a huge, huge cascading impact on India. And India, the external affairs minister, the strategic purpose, in my humble view, is black gold or black diamond, whichever way you want to call it, is oil, is the energy. So today, Russia has risen to the number one. It's almost number one supplier to India. On an average, the October purchases was around $80 per barrel, way above the $60 threshold, which the world had set for India in terms of sanctions and restrictions that they impose. As long as you are below $60, you can buy oil from. But it hit a very high price for various reasons. So Dr. Jaishankar made it a point to make it explicit that India will continue to buy from Russia, and India and Russia are strategic partners in the energy security. Energy here is both gas as well as natural gas, LNG. We'll come to Qatar in a minute. So therefore, now we are talking about India negotiating prices somewhere in, on an average price around $56, and two major ports which are used for, pushing or exporting from Russia into India. At $56, Mr. Modi has enormous capacity to put that flow on benefit of that into the Indian economy in the election year. Number one. Number two, they're going to also increase the supply, fearing in case there are disruptions from, let us say, Iran and Iraq, which are number two and number three suppliers to India, Russia will augment India's necessity in terms of sustaining and making sure its needs, domestic needs, are met. And Russia has fast moved into a supply chain which is almost close to 40% of India's energy needs, almost mimicking what Europe was to Russia. Is India becoming to Russia on the energy sourcing side, Sriji, is very significant. And this is Russian Urals. There is also Indian ports or Indian refineries are capable of processing the Russian Urals or refining the Urals that can also be re-exported to the markets, which are adjacent or which are the trading partners of Russia. So this is a very significant development in terms of the first part of the discussions that Dr. Jaishankar had, and in his press conferences he stressed this point. And this is also, I think India will also secure from LNG from Russia, and the LNG prices has dramatically dipped, as we will show you in the chart. It's come down by 50%, almost $4.20 to $2.40. So therefore, you are beginning to see a significant reduction in LNG, which is hugely consumed in India. And of course, the gas or petrol, as is called in India, that's again. So it feeds into the Indian side in terms of, as they always say, onion prices and the gas prices in the oil, in the petrol stations determine the election outcome. So you're beginning to see the trends and why Dr. Jaishankar was in Russia. The other important, one more, and then I'll hand it back. Well, the one more important thing here is, should there be supply reduction from the OPEC, India is well covered to address its own needs, Sriji. So therefore, and this will all be, by the way, in ruble, Indian rupee trade. Don't be surprised if Russian Urals or contracts are traded in the new gift city, multi-building markets, stock exchanges or trading exchanges that are likely to come up in the GIFT City. And where is GIFT City? Your guess is as good as mine. So all this was part of the strategic discussions. Plus, there's something more that's more geopolitical rather than commodities. Sorry, Sriji. Now I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, sir. The takeaway is for India, it's going to be getting crude in the 2024 year time frame for some months at least at $56 equivalent, and it's going to be a rupee ruble trade. Correct?
Correct.
So viewers, you should expect more than 10 rupees. I have a feeling it's going to be more than 10 rupees at the pump. We are so not used to it. This is going to come as a very pleasant surprise because I think India is managing its import. Sir, let's go back to, let's talk about crude pricing, sir. I just have a couple of dips that I wanted to ask you about. See, in March, mid-March, there was a dip and that went down. Again, in mid-June, there was a dip. And again, mid-December, there was a dip. And again, now looks like it might be dipping again. So these are dips are happening. Okay, talk to us a little bit about where the dips are happening and why.
The dips happened in those regions, especially around the May to June, July timeframes, as China, and then again in the March, April time, is two reasons. One is you saw the acceleration of the supplies. And there was also in March discussion, say March and June, July timeframes, that extension of the leases, not new leases, extension of leases to the current contracts that the U.S. Gas companies have contracts that they have on existing leases in the United States. That's one reason. The second reason is this was the period in which there was also Chinese economy dramatically dipped between 14 to 18%. So the demand also fell because China and India are two largest consumers or importers of the crude, shale oil and natural gas. So this is what caused the dips. And what's causing again? And the dip in December, the dip in December is caused again by this record production. They were, in the earlier part, we were around 10 to 11 million barrels. Now we have gone to 13.3 million, which is probably the highest in 40 years, Sriji. And Brazil coming online is also another in terms of increasing its production. New things happening in Guyana in terms of its production. Watch for the news in December that happened that Angola is quitting OPEC. It is small, but it is a sign of things in terms of the confrontation that's happening between the smaller producers and the big producers on OPEC in terms of strangulating with supply cuts.
Thank you so much, sir. And just wanted to touch upon this. So viewers, again, to recap, as far as India's imports of crude are concerned, right now, India is going to be getting its most crude from Russia. And then the other things where it is getting some from Iran and Iraq and UAE, that part, UAE probably is still going to continue to pump regardless of what happens in Israel, regardless of what kind of saber rattling Iran does. But Iran stands to lose out perhaps in this if this thing takes to the next level and India might start getting it from other places. We mentioned that Venezuela, Guyana. I think, sir, the bigger one is Qatar. Qatar has been, sort of sitting on an ivory tower, but it's been climbing down. Whether you take a look at pardoning the death sentence on Indian Navy sailor personnel to now realizing that India has other opportunities, other options, especially since we are talking about a close to 45% drop in liquefied natural gas prices. This should also reflect at the household, gas cylinder prices need to go down. Right. So Sridharji, so talk to us a little bit about LNG, how Qatar has been defanged, if you will. I can't find a different word than that. It is defanged. Very
simple. Qataris are the greatest and shrewdest and smartest business people in the world. In the Middle East, they are. You tell them it's a straight line across the coast from Qatar to India in terms of LNG. You have a problem in Red Sea. You have a problem in Straits of Hormuz. You have a problem in Persian Gulf. India is not impacted. So let's do a deal. So maybe soon we will know what the deal is, but the deal is dollars and the trade is LNG. So uninterrupted supply, guaranteed market pricing, augmentative as a risk hedge. India has done a deal with Qatar. They can wink and release the 8 people, Sriji.
That would be wonderful news, sir. Again, these are all, you can say as long as you want that these are all election gimmicks. It's not election gimmicks. It takes a lot more than to just call it off as a gimmick. It's much more than that, especially given that there is a very loud segment of the population which has been doing a lot of frothing at the mouth. You're seeing how the Western cities are being, confronted. This Christmas was a horrible, horrible experience for many shoppers. I don't know how much malls are going to take a hit. We will know only in the next quarter, just because of the disruption that has been happening, not just at the malls. Yesterday, World Trade Center, there was a disruption. Times Square disruption. And it is expected that on 31st night, there will be again another disruption, demonstration in Times Square. Relentless, relentless. And I think this is where people are beginning to understand that there is one thing called Palestine and there's another thing called an act of terror that Hamas committed. So we'll wait and see on that.